All right, class. I'd like to thank you for being here today. I know most instructors don't do that. And I'm not going to do the Professor JJ crap to you. Do I look like Professor JJ? Give me a break. Although I do have a whiteboard. Yeah, blah, blah. So, what's the deal? Yeah, I think it's important. What is this? What are you doing, JJ? Why aren't you playing a video game? That's a pretty good question. Why aren't I playing a video game? I was upset like a while ago, and I was saying that very thing to myself. Just play a video game, JJ. Just play a video game. Take your mind off of reality and how disappointing it can be at times when you're completely out of control. All right, what is out of control? It is as general or as specific as you want it to be. The way we are born, the way we are raised, out of control. You may know me as Zot the Avenger, and I'm sure you can probably imagine if you've seen any of the body of work outside of video games and more, you can probably imagine that I tried my hand at being like a civil rights kid. What the fuck does that mean? Well, it just so happens that I felt out of control very early on in life, and I didn't like it too much. No siree. I think that I tried to make my first attempt at standing up for kids' rights when my father was, away on a bender, like a year-long bender that nearly killed him. In fact, his heart did stop beating for about an hour, or for an hour. No, he'd certainly be dead if that were the case. He'd be brain dead. No, and he was never stupid. He definitely was not a brain dead person. No, it stopped for something like 30 seconds, like half a minute. They brought him back. I feel like I should take advantage of my board here. Okay? So here's how that worked. Okay? The average human, okay, human contains 8 pints. Blood. I think that's the same thing as plasma. I'm not quite sure. Please excuse the quality of my markers. They're kind of old. I need to get some new ones. So then, human contains 8 pints blood. So you take your 8 pints, right, plus one bleeding stomach ulcer. All right. Because of the nature of a stomach ulcer, you can imagine that might lead to vomiting. So that plus that means, I should probably put that plus vomiting. Uncontrollably? You get the picture. Okay? Vomiting is usually a pretty uncontrollable act, except for those with eating disorders. All right? That means minus 8 pints of blood. What does that equal? One dead dad. Yes, 8 pints plus bleeding ulcer plus vomiting minus 8 pints blood very rapidly equal 1 dead dad. Okay. I think that's clear. I think anybody could understand that. I know in order to be a in front of the camera kind of person, one usually needs to be capable of like explaining, pontificating, enunciating, pronunciating, and of course having, you know, coherent logic, like start here, go here, end here. So, but still, it helps to have the visual, whatchamacallits, you know, visual aids. That's right. I don't like that word aids, but yeah. So there's my visual aid for you people that can't focus. I know what that's like. I will probably be there soon. Hypervumble. Where was I? Stuff. Talking about personal stuff kind of gets me distracted because heavy. Oh, right, lack of control as a child. So, yeah, wanting to stick up for kids' rights because I thought adults didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Let's go figure, right? Now, it isn't so much that adults don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's more like they aren't always in their right mind. It's more like the pressures of adulthood lead to various things, whatever. Some people handle them like a water off a duck's back, while other people handle them like, well, I would say a one-handed man trying to juggle, but I can actually do that. So, at least 3 items. Of course, I need the room. You know, this ceiling is kind of low. All right, let me think of a better analogy. An adult trying to handle problems is only as capable as their experience level is with regard to the problematic situation. So, can we come up with an equation for that? Probably. No, I said I wasn't going to do Professor JJ prep, and this is not Professor JJ prep. This is what you call word for this. Spitballing? No, that ain't it. I think it's called idea clouds, something like that. Pseudocode, something like that. Okay. Again, thank you for being here today, and please keep it down so the other students can focus. Just kidding. All right. So we have problem solving. That'll be represented with P. God damn it. If I can solve the problem of dry erase markers that are too dry. We shall see. Okay. Well, I represent problem solving as PS. All right. Problem solving ability is equivalent to the experiences when you've done something before. So I'm just going to put XP, and that doesn't stand for experience points. It stands for experience, okay? And not Windows XP. No, no, no. This is problem solving capability equals experience multiplied by time, represented by T, plus resources, represented by RE. And finally, that is going to be multiplied by helping humans, helpful humans. Okay, so that'll be HH, and I'm going to put in an exponent that represents amount, so that'll be an A. Okay, so I think it's something along the lines of, yeah, problem-solving ability of an adult, average human adult, is equal to the experience with regard to the problem multiplied by the time plus the resources available to that human adult multiplied by helpful humans that are available to this one human, and it can grow exponentially. That's why we have assistance to the power of assistance. So basically, one human, even if they have a ton of experience with regards to a given situation or problem, they still might act kind of feeble, kind of like a noob. They might even act crazy from the pressure and crap like that, depending upon, you know, the human adult's propensity, or rather their tendency to just flip the fuck out. That has an equation as well that is typically multiplied by the amount of trauma that human has had. Also, the lack of experience. If the human perhaps has no experience with regards to a thingamabob, a problem, yeah, they're probably gonna show it. The reason why confidence is considered such a sexy attribute in a human being is because usually people don't front when it comes to confidence. I've heard that term fake it till you make it a whole lot of times, and you know, it sounds real easy, but it depends on who you're dealing with. You know, people get robocalls, right? And you get people pretending to be other people in order to take advantage of you. Yeah, I can tell if you're legit or lying to me within the first few seconds. First of all, you have to address me by my legal birth certificate name if you expect me to believe that you are a stranger that needs to speak with me. You know, now then, if you are not necessarily a stranger, and by that I mean if you are a part of my scene, okay? Like if I'm into computer programming and you're into computer programming, then you're not a stranger to me, okay? You've at least got to know me by my handle or something. If you're gonna call and expect me to, like, not hang up on you and wish you a good day, all right? But some people are real gullible, and I feel terrible for them. I'm trying to enlighten them, but I can't get anyone to pay attention, probably because I like to take my time, and nobody has time. Also, the algorithms that sort all the crap on the internet don't seem to favor me. Also, I curse a lot. Go fucking figure. And that kind of eliminates a large portion of my audience. Granted, if children are watching this, I assume they are savvy enough to circumvent the security mechanisms that the feeble adults have put in front of them. And, well, kudos to you. Continue watching. You might be a little bit enlightened. Might be a little bit like your instructor, Professor JJ. Sorry, I just can't help myself. I just fall into the role. So children's rights, Ultimately failed. I did not change the world. I did not bring forth a new civil rights revolution. I conducted a few scientific experiments. One of my experiments was, my mom, she was pretty cool. Like, she let me do what I needed to do to make TV. Sometimes she couldn't be around, like, for the whole time period, but she was definitely on site most every time. But, one of her techniques was to indicate that I had to remain in the proximity of her because otherwise danger would rear its ugly head and something bad would most certainly happen. My father, my crazy father I was telling you about that nearly drank himself to death, he told me around, I think it was around age 5, that I'd better not, leave the front yard and I should try never ever, wander too far away because if I did, a stranger in a cargo van or truck would pull up beside me, open the door, grab me, throw me in the truck. Shall I continue? Okay. Hog tie me, gag me, take me out to the middle of the desert, proceed to take my clothes off using sharp things like scissors and knives, and then plug up all of my orifices repeatedly in painful ways, especially painful because I was like this tall. And then after they were done, in order to get rid of the evidence, they would slit my throat and throw me into a shallow grave. All right, mijo? So don't leave my sight. I'm here to protect you, but I can't protect you if you don't play by the rules. All right? Do you want to end up like that? Dead in a shallow grave? No, Father. All right. Are you going to follow that rule? Don't ever go too far away from us. Not me nor your mother. Is that understood? Yes, Father. All right. Today's your first day of kindergarten. We have to leave you there. That's the way school works. Why, Father? I've never been apart from you. Well, that's just the nature of school. I guess they didn't know how to do homeschool yet. So my experiment at the age of 10, 5 years later, was to essentially walk around without my mother. My mother had a friend. Her name was Natalie McGee. She had a small business, independent, that was a prickly pear cactus jelly product maker. Had customers all over the country. I made her webpage because I'm a badass. Anyways, it's pretty good too, I guess. It was something like azstarnet.com/tildepricklypear. Az, I forget. But I digress. Natalie agreed to hang back like a ninja and just allow me to walk around freely. Pretty ridiculous experiment, right? Well, when you're a kid, you don't really know a goddamn thing except what you're told, especially by the people that take care of you. So, yeah, man, I was pretty much expecting the worst. I don't know. Maybe get gunned down in a drive-by, which ended up happening to this kid. I'd rather not talk about it, but it's on my Internet Archive. If you want to know more about that. What are we talking about? Right, expecting the worst, yada, yada, yada. So, essentially, oh yeah, I was so well programmed at this point, I expected the experiment to, I expected the worst, right? So, essentially, my mom's friend Natalie was like, basically the voice of reason, trying to convince me that everything would be okay, and I'm like, no way! This is gonna go bad real quick. And when it does, you better hop out and help me. You know? Because, you know, that's how it goes. And I'd already been going to school for a long time, all right? I'd already been away, apart from my parents, plenty of times. Give me a break. This was more about being on my own alone. Like, with no other... Basically surrounded by strangers. Okay? Anyhow, there's a lot of area to be explored in the field of kids' rights. Because essentially they ain't got none. At least until they turn 18, right? I actually did end up with an extraordinary amount of privileges as a result of my ability to be responsible, right? Keeping a schedule for the TV shows that I was working on, etc., etc., etc. Privileges in the form of liberty, freedom, hanging out, crap like that. Being in a band, going on tour at 16. Anyhow, what's the point? What is the point? Oh yeah. Basically, adults don't know crap, and so a lot of times you are at the whim of a fool, seemingly as it is. That is one of the ways that life fucks you over and totally is unfair, ultimately. All right? When you have to deal with adults that are seemingly cartoon characters because they're freaking out from their problems and acting irrational. You know, there's a reason why in the Sunday morning paper or whatever, in what, the Wall Street Journal, what, Newsweek, or the New Yorker, there's a million periodicals out there that have comic strips in them. Comic strips akin to Garfield the Cat, Marmaduke, Family Circus, etc. Calvin and Hobbes. And you know, they tend to make fun of humans by making caricatures, and the more famous humans, I should say. The Far Side cartoon by this guy named Larson. I forget his first name right at this moment, but he'll pick on anybody. He doesn't really focus on celebrities. Doesn't need to. People are as, I don't want to sound mean. People are as confused. Random people are just as confused as celebrities, okay? Yet they tend to speak with confidence. Like it's as if they are the expert. Now don't get me wrong. I believe in standing up for what you believe, etc., etc. But I don't believe in saying that your way is the right way and the only way. Okay? That's some closed-minded. That's ignorant. That's ignorant. Don't say that. That's ignorant. If somebody has found an alternative way to your way, that does not make it the wrong way, okay? But when you're a kid, the only thing you can do is obey the rules. That's like totally lame. That's why video games are such a fantastic resource, because it is one of the few environments in which an open mind can be free and open. A woke person can be awake in a video game. No? What is a woke person? That's a damn good question. I'm starting to wonder. I thought I was... When people are asleep, we must all become alarm clocks. hey man, life is my college. I've been thinking like that since at least 1995 when I picked up a copy of oh wait, no, that's actually off the Power Award. But I did get Last Temptation to read first. Um, in case you don't know, that those are musical projects run by Jello Biafra and Al Jorgensen. Jello Biafra is famous for being the Dead Kennedys dude or whatever, and Al Jorgensen is pretty famous for being the Ministry dude. And that's enough of a clue for anyone to go look that up if they need to. So here's the deal with that. Lard is a somewhat of a novelty act, if you really think about it. They're not like your typical gothic industrial musical act. They're really much more snotty than that. A gothic industrial act is more likely to be all like, if you will, they're more likely to be dwelling the lyrical matter. I mean, the lyrics are more likely to dwell upon the drearier aspects of life, which oftentimes do consist of areas where a person is out of control of their own life. Go figure. Anyhow, whereas this band that I'm speaking of, this musical project known as Lard, they were typically not dwelling in a dreary manner on these regrettable topics. No, they were usually making fun of them, actually. With lines like, who came first? Max Headroom or Gerald Ford? If you love your fun, die for it. Provocative, evocative, confusing? Not really. Practically too true. So what? What does that have to do with anything? I don't know. What were we talking about? You'll forgive me. I'm feeling especially lucid and clear-headed. I don't feel like I'm going to fly off the hinge at any moment like some kind of low experience point human with a problem that they can't handle. But anything's possible, I suppose. We were talking about the... Oh, right. So the reason I bring up this musical act is because Jello Biafra is the kind of guy I've always been impressed. I almost said oppressed. I've always been impressed with Jello's ability with regards to vocalization. I've always been impressed with his ability to sound ambiguous and very deliberate with regards to sounding two different ways, like feeling two different ways about something at the same time. Rather, it's a pretty good trick. He can sound sarcastic and literal at the same time, quite often. It's amazing. Like, I kind of noticed this on my own, with my own listening habits. But soon I found out that when I joined a band and started talking about music, especially on the road, when traveling and having lots of time to basically kill, if you will, I discovered that other people kind of had the same idea. They kind of felt the same way. And not only that, they had very well established viewpoints and even theories with regards to things I had already picked up on already. And sometimes the debate would go on for a while with people like a friend of mine. He's gone now, but Freddie Dubers had some pretty far out theories with regards to Freddie Dubers from the Zero Tolerance Task Force. Perhaps you're familiar. Also known as the Reverend Nero Orelson, also known as Fred Janis. He would tell me sometimes that lyrics. Like he would sometimes. I think maybe he was testing me to see if I'd go along with him, like some kind of sycophant, or if I would actually call him out on that bullshit and say, "Nah, dude, you don't got that right. That can't be right. You're talking about Jello Biafra. He's not gonna say that killing the poor is a cool thing that needs to be done. Give me a break, Freddy. You're pretty funny. This is a joke, right? Because I'm not gonna believe you. I'm not that naive. I may be 16 years old, but you can't tell me that Jello Biafra thinks that neutron bombing the poor is actually a good thing. I'm sorry, man. I'm a little savvier than that. I'm practically an adult. I've got mad skills. Okay, Fred? Give me a break. I will continue now with regards to the topic of how life is unfair and totally fucked up its own ass. Like I said, there are some prerequisites with regards to the topic, and that's basically to set the scene, give you the floor for the stage, you know, about all the stupid shit that we have to live with, deal with, abide by, etc., and how literally for the first 18 years of life, we pretty much have no say, no real choice on the whole matter. I suppose in certain cases, very specific ones, mind you, in very specific cases, I suppose we've made progress in terms of having an open and free society, even with regards to the young and the vulnerable. But the thing is, in general, we haven't. You know, the rules are still basically the same. You know, perhaps more attention is being paid to bullying on the surface. Probably not enough, though. The resources for a young person that is being bullied to actually, like, get help, like, you know, like if there is a fire in a like, I have a fire extinguisher right there. I keep one because I'm ready for the worst case scenario most of the time. I'm not a Boy Scout, never got to be one. I'm not a Girl Scout neither, but I could go for some cookies. But the thing is, I am ready for the worst case scenario, and you know, a fire extinguisher on the wall helps. Maybe a goddamn telephone on the wall, a video phone for, you know, help me, I'm being bullied. Send help, send backup. Something like that might be handy. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe a downloadable app. Granted, I don't think kids are really allowed to just walk around with cell phones in school. I don't really know. It's been a while. Perhaps advances have been made, but probably not enough. So, yes, when life is in control and you are not, this can be problematic for humans. And it can have long-lasting, otherwise known as long-term effects. I'm sure you've probably noticed many adult humans are somewhat unhinged. Otherwise, certain types of sitcoms and comedy just couldn't exist. The world not only needs unhinged people, but it relies on them, and ultimately there is no way to avoid them, because well, let me put it to you this way. I suppose a lot of time, research, and money, resources are being put into the study of shell shock. Oh, or that's an antiquated, deprecated term. What I mean is the post-traumatic stress syndrome disorder, um, otherwise known as PTSD. Yeah, people are looking into it. Yeah, trauma survivor is a real thing. I think it is at the core, it is a core element with regards to irrational behavior, like cycles of abuse, patterns of nonsense. Seriously, I think it all kind of goes back to trauma because humans at their core have this thing called I'm not making this up. You can trust me when I tell you there's a thing that humans have inside of their like brains, part of our neurosystem, our nerves. It's ingrained into our DNA. It is supposedly a survival mechanism that many people refer to as fight or, ready for it, flight. Sorry, it's getting dry again. Flight. I hope that is readable. Fight or flight. Say it with me. Fight or flight. Say it with me. Fight or flight. Fight or flight. When I screamed at you like a dick, what did you get a fight or flight sensation? Did you? I know I'm not there with you right now. I know. What's to be afraid of, right? I don't know. What is to be afraid of, huh? Huh, punk? Huh? You know what? I'm so tired of life, I'm gonna blow my fucking brains out. Did that scare you? Did that give you a fight or flight sensation? I wonder. I really wonder. Because if it did not, yes, it's loaded. Okay? Not fucking around here. I'm trying to change the world. I believe in world peace, and I believe that a lot of very irresponsible adults are manipulating all of us in an effort to increase their profits as opposed to increase our well-being and increase our freedom. And you know, the two are intrinsically linked. I could make an equation on the board about well-being and freedom. But right now, I want to talk more importantly about that fight or flight thing. Okay, I'm not going to leave you hanging. That would be a dick move, right? To just leave it all open-ended like that with no closure, right? Might leave you feeling a bit unhinged. So, why is it so binary? What the young people of today would call binary. It's either this or that. Binary is typically used with regard to digital technology, or perhaps just based to number systems. It is typically represented by either a 0 or a 1, which represents nothing or everything. Philosophically, in terms of philosophical things, this can be called Boolean logic. Want to know the history of that? You can look that up. Boolean, Boolean. Now, I'm not talking about like the ingredient for food, although we could do a cooking show after this. That would be a nice way to come down from the fight or flight. I'm all keyed up now, you know? I didn't want to do what I just did, but that's what a good instructor does. They put forth the effort to make sure that their student has good illustrations. And aside from that, they answered questions. And hopefully when they do that, the interactive part, they don't make the student feel badly about themselves. Yeah, hopefully they don't screw up there. The vulnerable youth should be handled with care because some of them are quite fragile. But with regards to fragility, fighting is to be avoided. It really is. It's basically guaranteed trauma. I can safely say 100% guaranteed trauma. I mean, there are gifted fighters out there. People such as Chuck Norris, famous movie star, Jackie Chan, another famous Chinese movie star, Bruce Lee, the late Bruce Lee, and from what I understand, his son, the late Brandon Lee, knew a thing or two about fighting as well. These are all, courageous people to be looked up to. Blah, blah, blah. Fighting is to be avoided. It's guaranteed trauma. It seems really obvious, does it not? But the thing is, humans are ultimately puny and resourceless. So naturally they cling to any resource for which that might be available to them. And they cling to that resource as tightly as possible in order to not lose that resource. There are things called human rights, and they are basically supposed to be guaranteed. I find that many human rights get violated. For example, I would say the most basic of human rights, and it's not just a human right, it's actually like a living creature right, but is the right to oxygen. As I puff away on the carbon monoxide or dioxide, I don't fucking care. It's my freedom, my right. And yes, oxygen is a right as well. Okay? But, of course, people do get drowned by accident, and sometimes because they get murdered. Some people come close to drowning because of bullying. Somebody perhaps holding your head underwater in a swimming pool. Has that ever happened to you? Has a bully ever taken you and you're floating in a pool going, ah, I love life. This is so fun, splashing around, and some bully looks over and goes, look at that little faggot. I'm going to put my hand on their head and go like that, and now they're not having so much fun, are they? When should I let them up? When I decide, because I am in control. Not the innocent. Not the innocent victim. There is a term called, perhaps you've heard of this turn of phrase. I would call it a witticism, but it's not very witty, okay? Blame the victim. I don't know if that's supposed to be like cute or clever or like, is it supposed to be ironic? I'd like to hear Jello Biafra say, blame the victim. Because he'd probably leave me as confused and befuddled as I am now. But is he serious or is he sarcastic? I am not sure. Obviously, I have a viewpoint. It kind of goes hand in hand with the fight or flight thing. Okay? Naturally, fighting is a guaranteed, 100% guaranteed pathway towards trauma, which is a guaranteed pathway towards becoming a human caricature of yourself It's kind of like a guaranteed way to lose control of yourself. In most cases, in practically all cases of trauma, the person experiencing the trauma victim, survivor, if you will, has no control over the situation, and that's why it is so traumatic, because they want a flight, and they can't. And what other option is there besides flight? Well, there's fight, but more than likely, if you're being victimized, you're not winning the fight. So, people, humans, they argue that fighting is a good thing because it is one of our only two resources for survival. So therefore, it is to be acknowledged, respected, admired, and ultimately, it's like a human right, the human right to fight. Yeah, but are you fighting with your words? Are you fighting with your fists? Are you fighting with a more high caliber tool than your fists? Are you fighting with prejudice? Are you fighting with lies? Are you fighting fairly? These are all important things to consider. Ultimately, the winner of the fight is the one still standing. Kind of hardcore like that. Kind of like survival of the fittest. Don't ask me what kind of fit they are referring to, because I will kick you in the balls, I will stab you in the eye, and I will do whatever it takes to stay alive, personally. Sometimes it can be considered an overreaction. I don't know, I'm pretty good at gauging my situation. I told you about the robocallers, right? I am not Adam Sandler and Billy Madison. I'm not the type to overreact. That's more like a bully thing. But, yeah, so they argue that fighting is an important human right, but this instructor somewhat disagrees. I crossed it out. Because we are supposed to be living in a so-called civilization, a so-called society. We supposedly have rules, otherwise known as justice, laws, etc. And for the most part, we do, but they could be much better. Some forms of fucked up rules and laws and shit consist of like the drug war, where innocent drug addicts get to suffer a whole lot for no good reasons. Another thing is, the whole blame the victim thing. People that have been abused in terms of physical abuse. Let's just leave it at that. Okay? I don't want to freak anybody out here. But yeah, a lot of physical abuse victims don't get justice because they don't have enough evidence to prove the case. So, yeah. I suppose living in a so-called Orwellian society might solve everything someday. But then again, maybe not. Who can say at this point, in the infancy of such a surveillance-based society? But that's the thing, is if we're supposed to be living in society, it should be violence-free. It's that plain and simple. If it's not, then it's not survival of the... Or wait. Sorry, I got that wrong. I got tongue-tied. Yeah, that's right. So, if we're in a civilized society, violence has no place because of the very fact that survival is not an issue in a civilized, open society. Survival is like either provided or the freedom to make a life for yourself, which is basically survival, is provided. All right? So, yeah, pretty much violence in any form is just like out of context for a civilized society. And until we can make violence like a four-letter word, like, people think that I'm fucked up because I say fucking shit and goddamn it and stupid son of a bitch and dirty cunt more fuck. Hell, maybe even racist shit like dirty kike nigger bitch fucking blah 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 blah. Those are all very ugly, dirty words. It's true. But you know what? Violence should be even a dirtier word. Seriously, you call yourself woke and you call yourself a vegan and yet you still don't protest outside of, fights. Like, the right to protest is a guaranteed right here where I was born in the United States of America. It's kind of like guaranteed, supposedly. Granted, I have attended protests back when I was this tall where violence was used by the authorities, not by the nonviolent protesters. And it was a disturbing thing to witness that has stuck with me my entire life. I was traumatized by the very people that are in charge of protecting me. That leaves a child feeling very vulnerable and very hopeless for the future. With good reason. So what's my point? Well, if you're civilized, why don't you go protest in front of like a fucking fighting league? Huh? I'd go do it myself, but I'm an old man with a lot of problems. So the pathway to world peace lays in nonviolence, something that a proponent of nonviolence has been a person you may know of by the name of Tenzin, is his first name. I'm drawing a blank on his last name. I kind of knew the guy, so I'm not so formal. The Dalai Lama, he's this guy that has spent most of my life, probably many years before I was born, trying to spread the message of peace and understanding and respect. Peace, love, unity, respect. He was spreading that plur vibe all over the planet. And it seems like for a long time now he's been like forgotten or not acknowledged, at least in my neighborhood. I don't know. I try to bring him up, but I think people get tired of hearing me flap my gums. I'm getting to the point where I really don't give a shit what you want. I'm gonna fucking shout at the top of my lungs pretty soon. I might even start doing some hacktivist shit. I'm really sick of my society. It's vulgar and it's leading to like idiocracy. You ever seen that movie? It's a pretty good one. Anyways, now people are talking about the Dalai Lama because he had a momentary old person moment, because he's been like doing this gig for like what, a million years. He's like 90, 87, I think is what he literally is. Okay? The guy should have retired 20 years ago, but guess what? We don't have world peace yet. And when you're the Dalai Lama, you don't get to quit. You don't get to retire until like the whole world is enlightened. There's a term for that in the Buddhist religion. I think it's called a bodhisattva. No, wait. Is that it? It's the sacrifice. It's practically like martyrdom, but it's not a form of suicide. Not even slow suicide. It's more like my job isn't done until the whole world is enlightened. I forget the word, I think, unless that was the right one. Bodhisattva? I don't think so. What does that mean? I'm kind of like, I'm not living in a society that embraces these ideals. And I don't know what to do to change it. And that's leading me into more trauma. due to a lack of control and an ultimate feeling of helplessness, despair, and complete and utter unhingedness. And that's just one of the ways this world has let me down, and then why I am not guilty for my bad behavior. I own it, and I openly still say fuck you, eat shit, die, because those words mean nothing. You can tell they weren't even from the heart. But on top of that, it's not violence. Like, don't you get it? It's like, if you want to really, really, really dedicate yourself to martial arts, all right? That's a very important word, art. Art is like a bettering of yourself through dedication, time, effort, perhaps a society of artists that support each other. It's a lot like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, if you've ever seen that. It's basically a good time where nobody's really out to kill each other, and they're bettering themselves and their skills like mad ninjas. They got mad ninja skills, and that's what's really important. It just so happens to be that their chosen form of what they're dedicated to, their chosen form of discipline is, the fighting arts. If that's the way you want to be, if you want to be a Jedi, well, which is a Star Wars thing made by George Lucas, if you're familiar, yeah, all right, fine, I'll tolerate your violence. But if you're just doing it for money and fame and, attention and, to hurt people, you're totally fucked in the head. And need to just and I think this is the end of the lecture for today. I will attempt to come up with more material. Please grab a copy of the syllabus. Oh, it looks like we're all out. I'm sorry. I'll print some more. I'm gonna maybe hurry up and get the next lesson made up. But man, I'm done for the day. I'm spent. This is not fun at all. It's totally frustrating.